going? Awesome crowd. Great. Sweet. So the theme is summertime, and it makes me, of course, think of like all the summers, all the great summers I've had. And the first one was that I remember that really stood out was the summer of 1997 when I fell for a woman for the first time. And some of you guys in the audience might be like, what's the deal? And the deal is as assigned female at birth. Things changed a little bit. So in 1997, I was like, oh my god, I like chicks. This is crazy. And it was a big problem. And really, it was a great summer. And but it's a lot to deal with, pretty much. Yeah, there's a full story there, I guess. I've been kind of repressing my sexuality for a long time because that's what we're taught to do in this awesome country of ours. And I met this woman and I couldn't hide it anymore, and I was like, oh crap, I really love her. And it didn't turn out well, of course, because your first love never turns out well. I guess maybe for some people it does, but then it'd be pretty boring, I would assume, because then you find the person you love and they love you back, then I guess you don't make any art out of it. So that was a long time ago, and I haven't seen her in years, probably since 1997 actually. And she lives in New York, and part of me is like, oh, maybe our paths will cross. And I'm not exactly about to go seek her out, but I'm still waiting for something to happen. Hopefully someday our paths will cross. But one of her big things was like, oh well, I kind of like women, but I'm really into men. And that was something that I heard a lot growing up from women I was into, and sometimes ended up dating or sleeping with. And of course, it's ironic because I identify closer to the male side of the spectrum now. So it just goes to show you, no matter what people say, it's I'm looking for this, and you could have it all along. Sometimes people don't necessarily know exactly what they're looking for. There's that story. Okay. Moving forwards, one summer I worked for an abortion clinic, and that was so much fun. Serious, but I was canvassing for them, and it was in Oakland. It was like downtown Oakland, and they provided a lot of health care for like low-income women, which was great. And it was pretty much all of us who worked there were lesbians, which is very fascinating because it's like none of us were really doing dudes, but we were kind of watching out for people who did. So we would canvass, went to Palo Alto because a lot of wealthy people lived there, and went to Steve Jobs' house, and he wasn't home. It would have been nice if he had been in and given some money, but it was a really tough job because I was a lot more shy. I'm still can be kind of shy, but I had to go door to door, and I hate the whole idea of going door to door. But it was like for a good cause. It's like the only way that this clinic made money was like through fundraising, and I'd have to knock on people's doors and be like, "Excuse me, are you pro-choice?" And if they said yes, then I would talk about the clinic. But if they said no, then it was like, oh, I get the fuck out of here. And people would tell me to go to hell, and it was just like, I guess some of us, we all hate our jobs sometimes. But that's like really I'm just trying to help women take care of themselves and stuff, and I don't know how I did that job. The next year, I ended up working at a movie theater. I worked at a lot of movie theaters growing up, which is great because I loved escaping into movies. And there's one theater in Berkeley, it was a huge theater, and there was a room in the back of the theater that was designated for smoking up. It was great. It's not like, on one hand, it wasn't like, oh great, I'm actually helping people who need health care, but it was, it's hard sometimes because you want to do a lot to help people, but sometimes you can only do so much. So that summer wasn't quite as philanthropic, but I had a lot of good times. Okay, so then getting elsewhere, when I think of summer, I think of, cycles and repeating things, and how it's oftentimes we're reliving our past and repeating patterns. Well, I'm speaking for myself anyway, and the past doesn't exist. We can't go back and change anything, but I feel sometimes that I cling so much just to like my history, and when I see people, sometimes it's hard to forget certain things that's gone on with them, and it could be good things or bad things, and I wonder so much of just continuing to, like, we all are choosing to survive even though life sucks a lot of the time. And I wonder, sometimes obviously it'd be easier just to be like, I'm just not going to do it anymore, it's too painful. But I wonder sometimes if we're just kind of, or for me, if I'm just striving to redo things that I've done in the past and maybe to do things better. And I think since we're kids, we're censored pretty much. We're told not to say certain things or behave a certain way, not to dress a certain way. Like, there's so much. Even a lot of us here in this room might identify as artists, and we're kind of trying to create new worlds and express ourselves. And for me, I do this because even we're animals pretty much, but we wear clothes and we censor ourselves and we try to protect ourselves, and we're pretty much brainwashed. And so it's like, when are we really doing what we want to do? And I know people think, oh, you got a sex change, you're pretty radical and crazy, and I'm like, what? I'm fucking afraid of so much. Like, I'm still, like, I want to make out with people most of the time. And granted, I always was kind of like that. So, hormones, and then I'm going through puberty again, although it doesn't help. But, like, I want to make out with people all the time, pretty much. And I don't do it. I mean, even when I'm drunk, I'm still just like, excuse me, would it be okay if we can maybe make out? And then it doesn't work out. It's a pretty good thing, it's like, I'm a nice guy, whatever. But there's still this, like, self-censorship and I wonder how much of it am I just trying to all these moments in our lives where we're told no, and we don't do what we want to do, we don't do what we feel we should, either because we're afraid of what people will think or we're afraid of hurting other people. I wonder if that's part of what keeps us alive, is that maybe this time will be different. Okay. Thank you.